Well, hey, gosh, today it's a big one. It's so big it's gonna be two parts, because there's a lot, and I'm gonna talk today about the setting and paper miniatures for Garafrax.
Okumarts Games. Okumarts Games. Okumarts Games. Hoorah! Whee!
And we're back. Okay, so Garafrax. It's a weird name. You may know it as a set of 7 paper miniature sets that I have out there. They're a little quirky. They're a little dark fairy tale like, and we'll get onto that in just a minute. But Garafrax, why are they called Garafrax? Well, I started drawing a lot of concept art, and it was kind of Tim Burton-y and dark, and there were a lot of pumpkins, and it was kind of a Halloween Town kind of vibe in it. And it was something that I was working on for a comic. I don't know what I was working on it for, but it was just sort of one of those things where I just had this thing in my head and I had to get it out, that's important. That's important. So I started putting this stuff on paper, and I kind of forgot about it for a couple years, and then I came back to it and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I really want to do something with this. I have this idea. And so the idea for Garafrax was born. The name Garafrax actually comes from a township in, not too far from where I am, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, called Garafraxa. Garafraxa, and it's up by Orangeville, if you know where that is. It's got a lot of great views, very scenic, and a lot of people go there for hikes and small towns. It's got just charming. It's charming, and the name is a little bit of a mystery. So I did a bit of digging, and I took a look at the possible origins for the name Garafraxa, and there is an indigenous term that means panther country. That could be it. It might commemorate some ancient Irish estate or castle, because there's some Irish immigration there. Some say that the Scottish immigrants, the settlers there, named it after the stream, the Garry. It could also, maybe be related to the word that's Gaelic called the Garafrax. Well, I don't think I said that right, but basically means the rough heath. Another one may get its name from sassafras, a local plant that grows there. Maybe there was a lot of sassafras happening. They called it Garafrax. But another one is, if you look at Old English, gar in Old English means like a small triangular piece of land or cloth. And, it's like a sail on a boat. And in this context, it could be that this township is part of something bigger, almost like a quilt, as you were, a quilt of land. So it's still a mystery. Why do they call it that? All these ideas are out there, and I'm sure there's more that I missed doing my research. But I was always interested, and every time I would drive by the sign, I would say Garafraxa, and just it rolled off the tongue, Garafraxa, just like the way it sounded. And so I decided that I would call this setting Garafrax. I liked the sharpness by taking the A off. Garafraxa sounds kind of friendly. Garafrax sounds a little alien and dangerous and sharp, and like it's gonna get in your eye. Careful, you might get it in your eye. Basically the concept that I came up with from these sketches was that this was sort of like a Brigadoon-like village, and this village. If you don't know Brigadoon, every 100 years this mythical town appears, and you can go in it and do stuff, and then careful, it's going to go away, and you'll be stuck there for 100 years. I imagine this sort of lost valley in a mountain range, a cursed valley, and in this valley is the town or the village of Garafrax, and it's old stone. It's like just magical in a way. And I thought this would be kind of almost like a fun, fairy tale kind of world within another world. So you could, kind of transplant it into any setting. So if you had a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or Shadow Dark or something, or White Box at the time, you could just sort of drop it in and have the characters visit it. And I thought it was kind of a fun way to introduce concepts and themes that maybe you didn't have in your regular game. So that's where the origin of Garafrax is. And I like the idea of it being kind of cut off and different. And so elves were different, dwarves were different, and magic was different. And as you went in, you would start to change too. You would start to conform to the magic or the of the location. That curse that affected it would affect you as well. So essentially everybody there is cursed. And the elves were a little more like dryads. They were much more connected to the trees, kind of more like in RuneQuest, the elves in RuneQuest. I really liked that nature. The dwarves were a little bit more like the Slavic dwarves. They sort of had weird animal or weird feet. There's something wrong with their feet. It's kind of that they were aware of. Maybe some had tails. So there was something about it that I wanted to kind of, think about, almost like satyr creatures that were in those legends. And so everything starts changing into to conform to the curse in the valley. And I think that to me was kind of interesting. So the first two sets I put out, I just wanted to kind of have something that established a setting. So I wanted to establish the theme early, and I wanted to establish the setting. So these two sets, I think, kind of do that. And the kind of a nod to the Halloween Town aspect of it. The first set has some sort of like skull cultists, and they're kind of almost pilgrim-like, kind of almost Death Eater-like in a way. And it's basically like this guy with a mask and a skull and a pike, and he's got these two bodyguards that are like big bulky guys with like skull masks. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And then I had these two kids to kind of play up the fairy tale aspect of it. And one's sort of like a witch, and she's got a broom, and the other boy has a magic book. So there was, kind of a magical aspect to it already, and kind of a dark magic at that. And then there are pumpkin people. Now I've got like maybe dwarves or goblins that have pumpkin heads on them, and they've got these bloody weapons and these pumpkins, these almost jack-o'-lanterns that are on the ground, and they've got these vines everywhere. I think those are the first couple of miniatures for that. And what I thought was, this is kind of maybe kind of gross, that these pumpkin things are the actual monsters, and what they do is they need a host to feed on. And so once they're ready, they snare you in the vines, and then they climb to your head, and it drops down onto your head like a mouth. The mouth is on the bottom of this thing with a pumpkin, and basically bites the head off, pop. But at the same time drives these vines into the body and animates it. Terrifying. It's terrifying. But kind of that symbiotic parasite idea that would create these sort of pumpkin head zombies. And so for the set, I had these pumpkins, on the ground. You could put them. They go, oh, pumpkin patch. What could go wrong? And then these horrible things happen. But also the pumpkin headed zombies. So there's a whole in the bonus section. There's a whole section of pumpkin headed zombies. So that's fun. So that's a good start. That's a fun start to the set. So there's an element of horror. There's an element of kind of spoopy as well, because like Pumpkinhead, it's kind of goblin core, I guess they call it now, because there is this sort of playfulness to it, right? And then the second set, I have these things based on the Canada geese in my neighborhood who they'll get you. I was once surrounded, and I counted, there were 70 of them. And I thought, how am I going to survive this if they attack all 70 at the same time? They're pretty ornery up here in Canada. So, Yeah, so we call them cobra chickens. We call them cobra chickens. But what I did was I did some geese. I made them like white, and then red from basically the head down the neck to the bottom of the base of the neck. And that kind of was because they call them blood geese. And basically they attack with their razor sharp beak and basically disembowel people, and it's awful. And so I thought if they rolled a critical, that was what would happen. You'd take like double damage or something. They're more than double damage. Some special effect would happen. So I thought, almost like a Vorpal, a Vorpal bunny. But in this case, these cobra chickens, which are kind of dangerous as it is. But I also added some gnomes. And I wanted the gnomes to be like garden gnomes. So they got the red hats, they got the beards. I got a couple that are wearing chainmail and armored, but I also have a couple other regular ones and like a little dog that goes with them. And then these two snake ladies, almost like Lamia. It was kind of like, I thought maybe they're living in the woods and they come out of their cave, and I thought they were kind of be, scary, gobbling up these gnomes. The gnomes have to be careful. That's why they have an armed patrol. And what are these other gnomes for? Well, gnomes are known as tinkerers. So in the valley, I imagine there would be a lot of, wind that kind of swoops down through the one part of it on the hills, on the face of the foothills. And then I had these idea of these giant, I think this came from Castle in the Sky, giant windmills that are just these big wooden rickety windmills that are kind of hastily built, and then these big sail, torn windmills. And I think mentally I was thinking maybe Sleepy Hollow, the windmill. But I thought as well, these are the gnomes run these. I don't know what they run them for. Maybe to power the dwarven kingdom under the mountain, whatever. But that's what these are for. They're these big windmills. But then I thought, what if they had some windmills that use the wind to wind up clockworks, and then they had feet. So these windmills would sit there and do their job, but then you could disconnect them and then start walking around like a mecha with these feet, almost like Baba Yaga's, hut. So those are the first two sets. They came out in 2018, and I was very excited about this, and they didn't sell very well. They really didn't. People weren't as excited about it as I was, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't usually make things for other people, but I just put it on the shelf, and I waited. The next year, I did 2 more sets, and I was really actually inspired to make these sets by kind of fleshing out the area, but also by prog rock. King Crimson, the Court of the Crimson King, was one that I was interested in. So I did for the third set, I called it Village Green, and it's basically people. It's peasants, it's villagers, it's nobles, it's like a town crier kind of character, and just wanted something that was, normal, so the characters could interact with NPCs and in the village. And I thought that would be kind of a fun set. In the bonus set, I included, laborers and people carrying water and stuff like that. But I also have some poop smiths. And the poop smith is an idea from Homestar Runner. I almost said Strong Bad Runner, but Homestar Runner. And he's one of those characters that's just, he doesn't say anything. And I thought, they have to take a vow of silence. And why do you take a vow of silence? Well, you don't want to get any in your mouth. You don't want to get anything in your mouth. So, poop smiths. So I actually wrote up a class, I think, for White Box, called the Poop Smith, and it was just kind of fun. It was just a silly plan, and my friend Mitch got involved, and it was just kind of wacky. And so I included them as well, and it was just a fun nod to Homestar Runner. The 4th set then that came out that year was a set based on Court of the Crimson King, and I thought of him as sort of like a big, like, necromancer or a lich or something, just covered in blood, just awful, crown of bones. It's just gross. So I drew that first, and then I kind of started building around it. So it has more magical characters, but I also added the sort of Humpty Dumpty egg guy as well, and just weird things like an ogre that has sort of the Court of the Crimson King logo on him from the album, that sort of face, but in a kind of a metal plate armor. I thought it would be kind of fun, and I wanted it to be kind of playful at the same time, as well as kind of scary. I've also got these like sort of stingbat like stirge like fluttering insect creatures that I imagine are pretty awful. So just kind of expanding the awfulness of it. And so so prog rock became kind of an aspect of what I wanted for this set as well. So we had fairy tales and Brigadoon and Homestar Runner. There's been a lot of influence. Okay, a lot of influences, and then prog rock, which I thought was kind of a surprising thing. So these are the first 4 sets that came out in 2018 and 2019, and again, not a whole lot of hoopla, not a whole lot of people being like inspired by this, at least not a lot of feedback. So I thought, well, okay, I'll put it on the back burner for a little bit, and then COVID happened, of course, and so priorities changed and things got shifted and other projects came up, and I thought, I'm going to come back to these, but I'm going to try and reinforce the theme a little bit more. And so the last 3 sets so far, I released my last set in 2022, but 2021 and 2022 I released 3 other sets. I'm going to talk about them in the next video, but they're based on 3 individual fairy tales, and I will cover those next time. Okay. Thanks for sticking around and watching this far. If you want to find out more, take a look at the Garafrax sets on Drive-Thru Role-Playing. You can find them on there. If you join my Patreon, the Paper Miniature Patreon, you'll find them all there. So for a low price, you can join up. Just go get them. Just go and get them. You can there's an archive full of stuff. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I know some people that are on Patreon are retiring older sets and older things that they've done, but I think that's you kind of sign up for that. You're kind of signing up for the archive. It's huge, and I think a lot of people don't know about it. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Stay tuned for part 2 to find out more about those other 2 sets and the future of Garafrax, where Garafrax is going, what I want to do with it. And anyway, in the meantime, I'll see you. Don't forget to like things. Don't forget to share these videos with your friends. And I'll see you later. All right, toodaloo.